I'm crazy about cars. For a woman, I'm kind of a car nut. And this is my favorite car that I've ever had in my whole life. This car was made in Milwaukee, and it's a 3/4 reproduction of the 1927 Mercedes Phaeton. And I have customized it. I put in power steering because Arnold Schwarzenegger could not have parked this car. It was the original and authentic. Well, we don't need authentic. And then it had little teeny headlamps, and I replaced them with gangster lights. All my life I have been what I considered a good driver. Other people tell nasty stories about me, how I've done terrible things, but they never ended up in an accident, so how terrible could it be? I wore an old-fashioned white raincoat like they used to wear in the old cars. In other words, I dressed for the car. And I wore a hood and huge goggles. It's always fun to drive out in this car because everybody says, "What do you take for it?" Or, "Hello, it's beautiful." And it makes everybody happy just to look at it. My other cars, I had a Rolls-Royce, a Silver Cloud, a 1959, the last of the great beauties, with the huge nose, hood, and the wonderful headlights, and the, oh, what a beautiful car. It used to just sparkle in the moonlight.
When did you buy the house that we're sitting in now?
About, exactly, I can tell you. 1965. I bought it sight unseen. I love this house. It's almost 100 years old, and it's so sweet and gentle and countrified, and it's like my own little forest here.
Now, the house doesn't have a swimming pool, does it?
On purpose. My last 3 houses had swimming pools. And I feel that having a swimming pool is like having an invalid aunt. They require constant attention, and they have to be cleaned every day. And if somebody drowns, you're going to get sued. I love lawns. I have a park-like situation here. We have flown kites from the lawn. It's so big. We played baseball, football. We had tennis tournaments, and we play catch. I love to play ball.
What's your favorite room in the house?
I guess the loggia. Some people call it the flower room because it's always absolutely full of flowers, and they are almost always all real fresh flowers. I have a couple of rose gardens, and I have friends who raise a lot of roses, and they bring me roses, and I raise roses, and it's a rosy time. Years ago, well, actually it was in 1966, that's how long ago, I had just finished restoring the house. Therefore, you're going to have a big party. All stars. And in every big goblet on each, there were about 150 people, sit-down dinner, there was a little goldfish in the water. And Robert Mitchum, he swallowed his. Because it was the favor, the party favor. As they left, everybody got to get their goldfish and take it home. And all the thank you notes were about what they named the fish. And some people made deals at the door where they traded their fish for a different fish because they had 2 kids and needed 2 fish.
Now, all the rooms in the house in your house have got names. Can you run through some of them, and why did you name them? Well,
I don't know why I named them, but the phone is in a little teeny closet-type room called John Wilkes Booth. And then the little powder room for guests is called Edith Head. She liked it a lot. It is a hand-painted bowl and pot.
Because she was a costume designer.
She won 7 Oscars for her costume designing. You'd have to be very old to remember these things. And then there is the Bob Hope Salon with a very magnificent portrait of Bob. And then there's Gothic Alcove. And the reason I call it Gothic, it has stained glass windows and it's sort of an alcove. And there's a bust of me in there, you know, as if I should have a bust. People like George Washington and Thomas Edison and Bach, they're people who have busts. The Scarlet Scullery is the kitchen, and it's bright red. The Sarah Siddons room is the dining room. And then there are other things like my studio, my office. The pump room has a pump organ in it.
You've been painting for quite some considerable time now. You paint at home. Is there any particular subject that you really like painting?
Well, I paint anything. People sometimes commission me. One lady she collects bathtubs, paintings of bathtubs. So I painted a bathtub. And I do boats, seascapes, landscapes, trees, flowers, a lot of faces. And what else do I do? Cars, animals. Sometimes I invent animals.
How many wigs do you have in your wig room these days?
Oh, maybe 100.
Lost count?
Oh, no, I never counted them. Now, this pair I designed myself. Aren't they wonderful? This is a pair I got in Australia. One of a kind by a very fine Australian designer. And then I have all kinds of beautiful glasses with, they're all very different, you see.
Ah, lovely.
We have red fox, multicolored mink, herringbone fox, sable, full length, squirrel, pink squirrel, fake squirrel, dyed black squirrel, mink with a fox trim.
Let's talk about your autobiography. Now, it's called Like a Lampshade in a Whorehouse. It's truthful, it's heart-wrenching in parts, it's absolutely gut-wrenchingly honest, and it's very funny. But why the title?
Well, unfortunately, the ghostwriter suggested that title. I should have questioned it. That's a very wrong title. And it simply killed sales, because there are a lot of people who would just wince at the word whorehouse. And of course that has nothing to do with the book, and it should not be the title. It's about a line out of my show, which is totally innocent, but it was a sales killer. It ruined the book. People have begged me to write this book, for 40 years. And what caused it to happen, I got several offers simultaneously from several literary agents, book publishers. So finally, one of them got to me, and I said, "Okay, let's do this." It should have been an inspirational book for women, because what I overcame was extremely difficult. I had to make a living for a family of 7, and we were a homeless family of 7 for 5 years, and yet I managed to get around it somehow and take care of the people and take care of everything, and here I am. I'll be 90 next year and still kicking around.
You, many years ago, gave me a book called The Magic of Believing, which I read from cover to cover many, many years ago. That book played a huge part in your success. Can you tell us a little bit about that book and how you got hold of the book?
Well, when I got hold of that book, I was a copywriter for a large department store, and the book was on sale there, and I started reading the book, and I found that book was talking to me personally. I found in just a few lines things that I was doing wrong. I was thinking wrong. It's all about the way you think. That's what life is about. And I realized that this book was what I needed to know. It was just about how to make it in this life, and you're never going to get out alive anyway. But how to do well in this life and get the most out of this life. And for 2 years, I simply read what I had underlined to get my mind straightened up. All I had to do to make it in life was to straighten out my mind and learn how to direct my thoughts and not accept other people's negative thoughts.
I was interested to read in 1960, Barbra Streisands' manager asked you to pick a wardrobe for her. Now, how did this come about?
She was opening the show for me. I had clawed my way to stardom in this little funny nightclub called the Bonsoir, and the management didn't like the way she was dressed. She was dressed perfectly right for Barbra Streisand. So the management said to me, would you please take her out shopping and get her some regular looking clothes? Well, we went shopping. Of course, she didn't like anything off the rack. She's not an off the rack person. And we finally settled on a plain black chiffon, beautiful dress, but just plain black chiffon. But it was featured in both Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, so we were on the right track. Anyway, about the third day after we had our shopping trip, Barbara asked me, would you mind, Phyllis, if I returned that dress and bought fabric? I have a friend who would make my design. And I said, of course not. You know, I understood exactly what was going on. She has always designed all. She may say Donna Karan, yes, it's all Barbra Streisand, starting right back then when she was 18.
She knew what she was doing and the look she wanted.
She knew exactly how she should look, what she should wear, what she should sing, and how she should look, and everything about her. She's a genius.
I believe that after you and your husband Sherwood separated, his family tried to sue you for $250,000 because they still thought that you were using them in your nightclub act.
In my act, I had Fang's mother and Fang's sister. But the funny part is, Fang was never Sherwood Diller. And they couldn't prove that Fang was Sherwood Diller because I never meant for Fang to be Sherwood Diller. Fang was a mythical husband, and therefore Moby Dick, who was the fat mother-in-law, and Captain Bligh, who was the skinny sister, were all myth. They were all part. I just made them all up, the whole family. Like for instance, I made up a sister of mine. I don't have a sister. I'm an only child.
How did you land the role of Hello Dolly on Broadway back in 1970?
David Merrick, who holds the record for having the most shows on Broadway at the same time. He was getting ready to go into his 6th Hello Dolly, and it would be following Pearl Bailey. And what he really wanted to do, give it another squirt of life, he wanted Jack Benny to play it in drag with George Burns, his dear friend. But I don't know whether it was George that didn't want to do it or Jack. I don't know which one, or maybe they didn't feel physically able. You see 8 shows a day on Broadway. You got to be young and healthy, hopefully. But that was his plan. But when he couldn't get them, a fine old comedy writer in New York suggested me. And when I told Bob Hope that it was between Debbie Reynolds and me, he laughed. I didn't even know it was funny.
Talking of Bob Hope, back in 1958, he turned up at the Lotus Club to catch your act, but you sneaked out without seeing him. Why was that?
Actually, I tried to sneak out, but I didn't make it. He jumped up from his party right during the closing act, and rushed over and told me that I was absolutely great. That was the turning point in my career.
Then you went on to tour with him, didn't you, on the USO Christmas tours and the East back in the 1960s. What was it like performing for those soldiers? And then you visited the hospital. That must have been absolutely gut-wrenching.
It was awful. He had to give me a long lecture about how to handle visiting the hospitals. He said, you must not empathize, you must be funny, you must bring cheer. You mustn't act like a relative.
Phyllis, when was the first time you decided to have any cosmetic surgery done at all?
I saw myself on the Sonny and Cher show, and that was in the, it had to be in the very late 60s, and one of their writers was Steve Martin. Just throwing that in. He's been everywhere. But I was playing, what was I playing? I was playing a kind of a witchy role, and I evidently had some real bad lighting and maybe pretty bad makeup. And when I saw myself on the screen, I thought, people are eating. I've got to do something. So that very next morning after I saw that show, I called and made an appointment to have a complete facelift. And thank God I did. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
How many cosmetic surgeries have you had since then?
After that, they were all just ancillary. Like, I broke my nose again, I had to have it redone. I probably had 2 more eye jobs because they droop again. And let's see, I had a peel, which helps a lot. It's a good thing to do. At a certain age, certain time, I always had such good surgery and such good doctors that I have always been very, very happy with the work.
Casting your mind back to the days of those Dean Martin celebrity roasts in Las Vegas, they looked fantastic, us as viewers. Were they as funny to work on as we saw them on screen?
Well, you know what? Those dear old Dean Martin roasts were really fun and really funny because that was real liquor. Each person was asked, what do you drink? Like scotch, gin, vodka. And I remember, and I won't say who it was, but one guy got so loaded they had to turn his mic off.
Now, moving on now to 1985, when you met the love of your life, Bob Hastings, and that was on a blind date. Who set up that blind date, and how much did that change your life?
Well, it was like a happy marriage. We did, at our ages, of course, we didn't need to get married. We lived together apart. He had a home similar to mine in Pasadena, and we were either here or there or together, and we traveled all over the world together, and it was like a great marriage. He was the right person. Finally found the right person. He was a widower. He'd been single for 8 years, and I'd never found the right person. And there he was, because somebody else with an objective view of the two of us knew that we were right together.